Welcome to Grade 1 View, the podcast for future CRNAs by future CRNAs. A new series of Beyond the Mask supported by AANA.
Whether you're about to graduate from a nurse anesthesia program, trying to get accepted to nursing school, or you're somewhere in between,
this podcast is a resource and safe space for all things nurse anesthesia.
We're your host team. I'm Kevin Chem.
I'm Olivia Kahn.
I'm Charity Garno.
And I'm Larry Sears. So grab your Mac or your Miller, turn up your flows, and get ready, because this is Grade 1 View.
All right. Welcome back, Grade 1 View listeners. It's Olivia here doing a solo episode today, but no worries. I got you. Today, our guest is Dr. Jorge Valdes. He is a clinical professor and dean at Florida International University's Nicole Wertheim College of Nursing and Health Sciences. A CRNA since 2002, he earned his DNP from the University of Miami and is currently pursuing a PhD in education at FIU. He has led initiatives that improve national rankings, graduation rates, and board pass rates. Dr. Valdes has held leadership roles in the FANA and served on several AANA committees. His research focuses on addiction, provider reentry, obstetric anesthesia, and diversity. He is both a fellow of the AANA and AAN and is also a father of four and an Ironman triathlete. Okay, Ironman triathlete. Let's talk about that real quick. That's no small feat.
I did that in 2013. So I actually started a PhD in 2008. And then I started teaching. But when I started teaching, we were transitioning that program into a DNP program, and I needed to finish immediately. Well, there's no finishing immediately with a PhD. So then I pivoted and I put the PhD in pause, and I then got the DNP. So I got the DNP, and then I didn't go back to do the PhD until about 5 or 6 years later. And then I started that, but then I got promoted to dean, so I had to kind of put it on pause again. Now in my dissertation phase, I've already passed my candidacy and defense and everything, so I don't have too much left. So, but when I start something, you got to finish it. And it's the same thing as an Ironman. An Ironman, when you start that, you got to finish it.
Yeah, I used to know someone in my CrossFit gym who did an Ironman, and just from talking to him, I got to learn a little bit about it, and I was just thoroughly impressed with the amount of just training that goes into an Ironman. So I'm impressed alone. You could have just had Dr. Jorge Valdes had done an Ironman. I would have been like, oh man, this guy is legit.
I mean, it took about a year to train, and you basically you swim 2 miles, then you bike 110, then you just run a marathon afterwards.
No problem.
So it's like a whole day affair, right? And you got to do that in 16 hours to be called an Ironman. And so I was just extremely fortunate, and I guess very, in the mindset, and I did it in 13 hours, which is a wonderful time.
That's crazy.
And so, so I've done a lot of half irons and, marathons and all these things, but only one Ironman. And I think that's about it, because it's a lot of training.
I definitely won't mention that I texted my father, I think last week, saying, Dad, I can barely run 2 miles. So we're just going to leave that out of context here. In my defense, though, it's like 98 degrees in Houston all the time.
Exactly.
So I do it after my call shifts too, when I'm running on 2 hours of sleep. So I guess I can't beat myself down.
So that's the best time, though, because that's the time that you can use to unwind.
Yes.
And to just decompress from the day's stress. And I think that's very important. And either you decompress in the morning to be ready for everything, or decompress in the afternoon. But the point is that you're getting it done. And even if you run 2 miles, the act of you increasing your heart rate and getting your adrenaline running, that's huge. And so that's kudos to you. 2 miles is not too shabby, okay? So,
thank goodness for these headphones and music and my little sunglasses, because it's hot. I'm from Maryland, so I'm still adjusting to this heat. But I think this is actually an unintentionally really good segue to what we're going to talk about today, which is basically resident wellness. So, what inspired this passion that you clearly have for supporting SRNAs, RNAs, and improving their success and their sense of belonging in now this great community of anesthesia?
Let me kind of put those apart for a second. Let me go back to sense of belonging in a second. So obviously, I'm very passionate about what I do. As you know, you're not going to meet a CRNA that doesn't love what they do. Just the fact of being a CRNA for 23 years now, that to me, I love what I do. When I got into teaching sRNAs or rRNAs, it took that passion in a different level because now the profession that I love so much, I got to really teach and influence that profession by training the next generation. That was really big. And it's very different than being a clinical preceptor to being a didactic instructor because I now get to teach the tricks of the trade, the tools, everything I feel that is very important. So that passion for teaching students and for improving my profession with the next generation had been there for a while, and it just grew and grew and grew. When I became chair of a program, well, now I was really invested into student success. And I saw all kinds of different things, and I've been basically in 3 different programs as an educator. I ended up in Florida International University. That's really where I started honing in what student success meant and how important that is. In my role as dean, I take that very seriously to the entire school body, right? And the entire College of Nursing and Health Sciences. And now I have not only anesthesia, but I have all the nurse practitioners, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language pathologists, you name it. It's a big, big group of students. Student success is so important because we would do an injustice to once we admit a student, if we admit you, number one, to get into school, you have to have the grades, you have to have, the science GPA, the commitment, the grit. We put you through hell and back in interviews, right? Just to see if you're going to live up to the muster, I guess, of every program. Every program does it a little bit different. But to me, and this is one thing I think is very important, once you're accepted into that program, we've mutually made a commitment to each other. And I've put the ring on it in the sense of I put the ring on you because I want to see you through the entire program. And I'm invested in your success and you finishing that program. I don't think that anyone who is accepted into a program nowadays, it's so hard and competitive to get into the program. I think you should make it. You should finish that program and be successful. The road to CRNA, no one ever tells you how awesome CRNA school was.
No.
They'll tell you how awesome it is to be a CRNA, but everybody will tell you how hard it is. And it is very hard. It is so hard because you're doing things that you've never done before. You're applying different senses that you've never used before. And so it all comes with so much stress, coupled with this didactic stress that you must pass every single class. The stress that you put upon yourself to learn everything, to be the best, to learn how to intubate, learn how to do blocks. It's very, very stressful. So I think that whatever tools we can use is very important. Now let's go back to that sense of belonging. That sense of belonging is very important. So when I went to school in the Midwest, and I did not know that I had an accent. I did not know that I was a foreigner in this country until I moved to Minnesota. And where are you from? Where are you from? And it was so life changing for me because it wasn't, people were just curious. I didn't know this. I grew up in Miami. I mean, everyone speaks like me.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And it's my dialect, just like when you live in Boston or you live in New York or something like that. It's the same thing. Right. But I had to find that sense of belonging within my classmates. And that's what got me through the program. And it's the same thing with students. You got to feel that you belong to the college, that you belong in that class. With that sense of belonging, when you feel that you're part of that cog, when you feel that you're part of something bigger, that you have a purpose, your chances of success are much larger. If you think about every single thing that has to do with academic success and student success, one of the things that's coupled in there is student belonging and sense of belonging. And I'm very big on that. When I took over as dean, one of the things I started to do was transform my college into a hub for sense of belonging for all the faculty. I feel that if you have very happy faculty, that's going to translate into student success as well. And we do all kinds of things for students as well. But there's a lot of tricks and trades that students need to be successful. Like what I told you, exercise is a huge part. And it's not exercise by just going out and, flying a kite. No, we need to get our endorphins going. You need to get your heart rate going a little bit. And it just it kind of makes everything get into place for you. And sometimes that looks very different for different people, but it's so important to develop some healthy habits. Studying all at once and trying to cram everything, that never works. But little by little and taking breaks and forgetting things is actually a good way of remembering things. So when you're studying something and you forget something, but then you're forced to recall it, that whole endeavor of forcing to recall something then kind of imprints that memory in your mind as well. So there's so many little things that students can learn on how to be successful. One of the books that I am always in the presentation that I'll make at ANA, I'm going to talk about that is Make It Stick. It has such good resources for students to kind of, use on every day. Unlike my Ironman, which was a solo thing, right?
Yeah.
This is not a solo sport, CRNA school. It is a group effort. You will make it based on the group dynamics that you're in. You all got to help each other. And the best thing I can tell people is you teach what you've learned and teach your classmates and let your classmates teach you. If you can teach it, you've learned it. And so I think I've just always been very, very passionate about this. And I've seen over the years what student success looks like. And I love talking about it. And I mean, my research area is a sense of belonging and how that impacts student success.
I commend you for all of that because, I mean, even for me, just a little bit of background on me, and I know our viewers who've been listening the entire time know this, but like I kind of mentioned earlier, I'm from Maryland. And when I picked up my entire life, along with my two, now three cats, I don't have any family out here. I went to a completely different city. I've never even seen Houston before coming to my school. And I have been solo, honestly, pretty much. That's not to say that my parents haven't, supported me from afar or haven't like flown in every now and again. They have. But ultimately, I'm handling this by myself. It's on me to get myself out of bed in the morning. It's on me to make my meals and make sure they're healthy meals too. But then also get myself to the gym. And then, when the cats get sick, I gotta take them to the vet. Oh, I've had too many flat tires to count down here. Thank you, Houston Construction. I love you so much. You know what I mean? Like it's all compounding and it's on me. And the people that, in my opinion, I rely on the most just to like vent to and get my days through are my classmates.
Of course. Of course. And it's funny because that is exactly why CRNAs go to AANA meetings or state meetings. Because how many times have you had to explain to individuals what a CRNA is?
Too many to count.
You got to sometimes explain to your family what it is you do for a living or what are you going to do for a living, right? And they don't know. Then you explain to total strangers what that is. But how cool is it to walk into a room and everyone knows what you are, right? And that's what you get. It's your profession. So within our profession, we build those connections. Within your classmates, those are lifelong friends that you have built now. We don't pick our family, although, we're stuck with them because we all got the crazy uncle, right?
Yeah,
That you
yeah,
have to
yeah.
deal with in Thanksgiving, but we love the guy. But we pick our friends. And with your classmates, you within that group, you didn't pick each other, but you live with each other. And some of them you pick as lifelong buddies. That is huge. That's why a lot of people get married during CRNA school to fellow classmates. All right.
Oh, I didn't
Sometimes,
even think about
oh,
that.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I just hear about the divorce rate. That's
Well, the
all I knew about.
divorce rate as well, because sometimes they get married to fellow classmates while they're still married to other people as
Oh,
well,
I see.
right?
Lord,
But,
drama.
again, it's because when someone understands you, there is so much to be said about that, right? And so that support system is very important. One of the things that we do at my college is we do these little things. Coffee is a very big thing in South Florida. Basically, what we call crack coffee, all right, because it's Cuban coffee. And Cuban coffee, it is the smallest little cup, but it is really the equivalent of about 7 American coffees, all right? Has so
I
much
think I'd have to be
caffeine.
hospitalized.
You are wired. You're wired. But everybody drinks these little Cuban coffee things, right? And so we do cafecito with the dean. But it's not only with me, it's with all the faculty, because when students see faculty in a different light, they understand that the faculty, they're human too. We're full of flaws as well, right? And so we're just like you. And that communication needs to be had, right? And I always tell the students, I mean, unfortunately I don't get to teach very often right now because of my position, and I just teach really one class. But we're not here to be your friends. Now, the minute you graduate, we will be very good friends with you, right? We'll in Facebook or Instagram or whatever you guys do, we'll go out for drinks. We'll be good friends. But while you're in school, my job is not to be your friend. My job is to tell you exactly what to do and teach
It's
you,
a mentor.
right?
Yeah.
And it's a mentor. But we need to still have a sense of we're all human beings and we can help each other, right? And I think that just starting there is very important.
No, it definitely is. And in my opinion, I think that's where a lot of other programs like that don't do what you were just talking about, where they go wrong. Like I was actually talking about this with a couple other CRNAs in the break room. I'm on my OB rotation right now, and it's feast or famine, as I'm sure you know. And it was, I guess feast time. I'm assuming feast time means downtime in OB land, but we were all sitting there. We were all saying that, yeah, you could not pay me enough to do this again. I will never put myself through CRNA school again. This has been the toughest ride of my life. I feel like I'm losing my hair. I don't know. I feel unwell all the time because I'm just working so much. And then if I'm not working, I'm doing my dissertation, the doctoral manuscript. If I'm not doing that, then I'm studying for an exam that I have every 3 weeks or the C exam on top of that. So yeah, 100%. And it is so important to be able to have faculty where, there's that level of respect where it's just like, you're the person that's helping guide me through this. You're not here in this moment in time, in this season of my life to be my bestie, but you are definitely here as my northern light, so to speak.
That's very important too. But one of the things I think that students, and we shouldn't do that, there's no place in education for fear. Learning from a stance of, I'm so nervous that I can't perform. No. I'd rather you learn from a place of kindness where you don't want to let me down. Why? Because at that point, you're really going to perform and outperform everyone. But if you're so nervous that you can't even put two sentences straight or answer a question, you get nothing out of that. And I think there has to be a change within preceptors as well, because we need to foster that. That whole old saying, nurses eat their young, that's so outdated and so wrong. And just because you were treated so way, don't treat others that way. And with that, it's a mutual thing too, because I think students also need to trust their faculty and say, hey, I've got this going on, or I have this problem. Don't let it get out of hand and then cause a problem. I've had students where they've had car accidents and then driven and taken a test and then not done well on the test. And it's like, well, why didn't you tell me? You didn't have to take this test. There's policies in places where you can redo this, right? Let's have a conversation. Life happens. I can't stop life from happening to you, right? But I can mitigate things a little bit to help you out if I know about it. And so I think that having those open dialogue is very important. And not a lot of people do that sometimes. It's changing the entire culture. We need to start one person at a time. And so not only do we need to change how we teach in nursing, period, because this, by the way, this is not, and I found that now, it's not germane to just, anesthesia. You know, Graduate nursing does the same thing. Undergraduate nursing, we have the same issues as well. And in PT, OT, and everyone, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure. And when someone's, in debt a lot of money, like the fear of failures is real as well. So,
Hmm. Yeah, no, gosh, there's a lot I could really say here. I resonate with everything that you said because I have more often than not been in those situations where I'm in clinical and I know that every day that I walk in there, I'm getting graded on a letter grade scale. And I don't know any other programs out in the country that actually give a letter grade for their clinical performance the way that my school does. I think most are pass fail. Gosh, it took me so long to like just get over the hump of when I was first learning how to put in central lines of, okay, I know the CRNA is right here and my attending's right here, and both of them are grading me on how I'm performing this skill that I've literally never done before.
Yeah.
And I was in a true story, like, and no harm ever came to the patient, but I hit the carotid the first time. I was just shaking because I was just so anxious. It was day one. No one was being kind to me. And it was all expected me to be perfection. And I just couldn't handle the stress. I mean, I wasn't breaking down and crying in the OR room, but I mean, did I literally feel like I was about to have a mental breakdown when I got to my car? Yeah. And it's unfortunate, and I don't even know where to, like, kind of, like, mentally put that memory, but I just think about, well, Olivia, when you're in the spot and now you have a trainee, I swore to myself, I was like, "I will never, ever in a million years make a SRNA, or even if I'm working with a resident, because sometimes it's, cross-training that way, I will never make somebody feel like they are so small."
That is exactly where you put that memory. Exactly where you put that memory is what you said. And that made you a lot stronger, right? It did. It made you stronger because you're talking about it now, but it had an effect on you. You don't want to have that effect on someone either. Because did you learn how to put a central line that day?
No,
No,
no.
of course not.
Yeah,
You learned how you didn't want to feel.
yeah.
Right? Because I'm pretty sure the day that you learned how to put a central line is someone who basically took your hand and guided you through it and said, it's okay. We make mistakes. We do this and this. That's how you learn. You learn so much more out of kindness than out of fear. And I think that that is a problem. I understand the stresses of the OR. We have patients' lives in our hands. I get it. Right. But I will also tell you that within that, you got to let people fail a little bit to succeed, and you can't be afraid of that. We're more durable than what some people think. It's hard to kill someone. You got to be trying sometimes. I mean, really, and I
Yeah.
know that sounds bad, but it's so true. It is so true.
Too many good
Come
drugs.
on. I mean, I'm not gonna let you push potassium for God's sakes, right? But if you missed the dose by a little bit, let's talk about what happened. But ultimately, a lot of times it's a mistake you're gonna make. We talk about it and it's never gonna happen again. But because it happened, it's never gonna happen again. So to make mistakes is a good thing sometimes. And if we all thought about it that way, wow, what a concept, right? I can make mistakes. And it's okay. Listen, the person who tells me they've never made a error in the OR, hey, I want to meet that person because they're an absolute liar. Okay? There's just no
Yeah.
way.
There's no way, yeah.
way. Of course not. We're human. Come on. So
At least now I know exactly what to do if I or myself or a colleague, whoever accidentally hits the carotid when they're putting in a central line. If there's any point in time in my training period where I really want to, like, learn what I know and what I really don't know and the mistakes to make, it's now. It's when I have, my CRNA in the room. It's when I have my attending in the room and I have that trainee kind of, like, head cap, if you will. I'm just taking it as it comes, where it's just like, all right, just take it in. Not everything is the end of the world, as much as other people can really make it seem to be. Learn from it, get better because of it. And then when you now have a trainee, remember those times when you made those mistakes and help them avoid that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just help out, like, give it forward. You know what I mean? It's like being at Starbucks and you pay for the person who's behind you. Like, just why can't we bring that forward?
yeah, it's very true. And it's sad because oftentimes when you talk to people about, oh, what do you remember from your training? They'll tell you a lot of the horror stories. Why? Because those are the ones that were most impactful. Like a death and, God forbid, a death in the OR, for example. I mean, I remember my first death in the OR was when in my training, and I had the CRNA screaming at me, like if it was my fault. Later I learned that this was something I knew it was common in the time, but I mean, I can't help if there's a PE that happens, for example, what control do we have over certain things, right? But the actions that were taken that day were so severe, and I'm never going to be like this. I mean, and I was near the end of my training. I remember, oh my God, this is not for me. For a student to think this is not for me after you've endured all this stuff and you're right at the end, that's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
you know? And so I think that we need to remember those bad feelings and not pay those feelings forward. Pay the good ones forward, right? And I mean, you got to think about I'm not going to, do anesthesia forever. I'm not going to, do that forever. And when I close my eyes, I want to make sure that the people taking care of me are great people. So let's train those great people.
Absolutely. And it blows my mind that and I'm only going to speak for the field of nursing just because that is the field that I'm most familiar with. But I mean, we're taught to care so deeply for our patients. Usually you like that is a personality trait as an individual. And but then at the same time, there's those of us who will turn around and just turn on our own kind. It doesn't make any sense. And, part of me wonders, is it just because we're not filling back up our vessel? Is the world not filling back up our vessel, giving us enough credit to how much we run ourselves into the ground for our patients? You know what I mean? So it's just like, I just feel like everything needs to kind of go on just a pause. And another thing that I told myself was, all right, Olivia, if you ever getting to that point where you're getting snippy at someone or you have a sharper tongue, that you need to take a vacation, girl. You need to go sit on a beach with a mojito.
So if you think about what you just said, we can take that right back to student success, sense of belonging, and wellness, right?
Yeah.
So you learn Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And so remember that we can't care for others if we can't meet our basic needs. And I truly, truly think there is that whole thing of provider, like empathy. You have nothing else left in your tank.
Yeah.
At that point, you need to take a break. You need to step away, right? Because you need to feel fulfilled yourself in order to do that. As practitioners, wellness is such a big portion. We have one of the most stress ridden professions. And so, with that stress comes great responsibility. And that responsibility also means responsibility to ourselves. We're not kind to ourselves. You can't pour from an empty cup. There's no way. And so you need to make sure that you fulfill your cup somehow before you can share that with others. And if you're going to take care of patients, it is so important to do that. And so, and it's the same thing when you're in the OR, you're helping students and all these things. That's the mindset you have to have. So what you just said, you hit it right on. If you ever feel that way, absolutely go to the beach, have some mojitos, go take a little
Yeah.
vacation, exactly what you need to do. Maybe lay off on the alcohol too much, but
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean.
Okay. Right now, to each their own. And by mojito, I mean literally a single mojito because I don't even drink that much anymore. But yeah, no, but I mean, you're right. That it's that emotional intelligence of recognizing, all right, when am I hitting my negative version of myself?
Mhm.
And that was one of the things that actually my program made us take a emotional intelligence, like just like this examination in the beginning. And I'm not gonna lie, I scored pretty highly on that thing. As I'm sure you're already catching on to, but it's just, yeah, I never want anyone who's under my wing now in the future to ever feel like they are not meant to be where they are because in truth, they've worked their tail end off. I know I did, and it's not gotten any easier. And I don't even just like translate this thought process to just other SRNAs like that are under the coat to me. I'll take this on to like even med students, honestly. I've had multiple med students where I'm teaching them how to put in an IV and I walk them through that entire process. I give them the tips and the tricks, and man, they walk away with the biggest damn smile on their face. And I even feel good about myself because I'm like, I don't care what your background is. If you want to learn how to put an IV in and you are now being in the medically trained field, yeah, I'm going to help you.
And it behooves you to help the medical
Yeah,
student. Why? Because they're going to remember that it was a CRNA student that helped them do this. And they're going to gain that respect for the profession as well.
absolutely.
And you said something about emotional intelligence. That is so important. And the emotional intelligence also is how you react to things. And so in that moment when they're looking at you and they're making you very nervous and you're about to hit the carotid and you hit the carotid, it's what your reaction to that episode also, because it's not it has to do a lot with what happened, but it also has to do a lot with how you reacted. So did you all of a sudden go into the corner and cry and let the patient bleed out instead of holding pressure and recognizing it right away and being vocal about it? That right there, there's a huge difference there. And there's no time to say, "Oh, I'm nervous, that's why I hit the carotid." Absolutely not. You're gonna hold pressure and I'll go, "Oh my God, I just hit the carotid," and you're gonna do what it takes. That's emotional intelligence. And so a lot of actions that we take, and actions are followed by other actions. And so if someone's being, just not appropriate, by you being not appropriate, that actually makes it even worse. So those are some of the things that we got to take under consideration and say, okay, if someone's acting a certain way to me, how can I diffuse this situation?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of emotional intelligence. It takes a lot of effort in our part too, because sometimes we're all very short fused. You don't want to do that. And if you look at people who go into anesthesia, I'm gonna go on a limb. I'm gonna say 95% are type A people
Oh, yeah.
because, oh my God, do we have very, very, type A people personalities in our field, but it's the nature of the beast, right? But know that about each other. Know that, we're all perfectionists. We're all coming from a point where we don't want to hurt the patient, and so mistakes will happen, but it's not our intent to do that,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But it's also, how you approach things. If someone asks you, would you ever say, "I don't know that"? No, you can phrase that in a different way, and it's like, well, I know this, right? And so I'm not sure what this is, but I do know this. So, always give them something, give them carrot, right? And so
Yeah.
again, but it's
No.
how we kind of manipulate and pivot. And I even said when we were talking before, you asked me a difficult, let's say you asked me something about, Henderson and Hasselbach and how to figure out, I'm going to pivot that right back to you somehow. Right. And so we need to all learn the art of pivoting. Right.
Yes. 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 And if neither of us know or neither of us remember, well, then let's review it together.
Let's figure it out. Exactly. Yeah.
Because I think one of the things that's lost, and I have not experienced this with nearly as many preceptors as I had hoped, but there definitely have been like the very like rare amount of few who I can say stand by this statement. But it's just, I feel like when you're in the role of being a preceptor, part of the uniqueness of that role is you get to spark the like love for anesthesia. And I don't think that's really harnessed nearly as much as it should be. And it's just, like I dreamed of doing anesthesia for so long. Like that's all I could think about when I was in the cardiac surgery ICU. And here I am and I'm doing it. And now I'm terrified and I'm questioning every day about whether or not I even actually like this. And it's really a lot of it's based off of the environment that I'm being put in. So like why I need more people really need to take that as like, okay, they worked their butt off to get here. And maybe they don't understand end title. Well, okay, then let's focus on end title today. Let me help you love end title and how much it can serve a good purpose in your life and in your training and your practice. And then you can take that forward and you can pass that all that positive energy and that passion to your now trainee. I feel like that's how this should be going. And a lot of us would be just in a much happier mindset if we just took the time to do that.
But it's also, and I'm gonna pivot it now. Okay. Pivot right back to you. And so it's how we ask some questions. Because sometimes, you're sitting in a case and there's nothing going on and it's just nice and railroad tracks, right? Those are the best cases, right?
Oh yeah.
So hey, can we talk about something like let's talk about local anesthetics, right? Or I'm studying about this. Can we talk about this? Sometimes those conversations are wonderful. Or teach me some tricks of the trade that are unique to what you do or something, right? Not everybody is going to be wanting to do that, but I think in the long run, we do need to change that dynamic, and more people should want to do that. Obviously, so.
Yeah, definitely. I think that like because most of the largest question or the most frequent question that I get when I'm in the OR is, "Well, do you have any questions?" And I think that he does a huge disservice
Yeah.
in general to both parties. I think the question, like you were basically saying, is, "Well, what are you learning?" right now? What are you interested in? Do you have a test coming up? Well, let's see what can we review together now that the patient is in a safe spot, railroad tracks, etc. Let's review something together. Let's talk about something together. What do you remember? What do I remember from school? Let's even just look at the literature, and it's just how we learn from each other. And sometimes some CRNA along the line told me this. They were like, some CRNAs can be actually intimidated by their SRNAs because you guys are so fresh in your didactic learning that you actually really know a lot of things, a lot more than we do, a lot more than we remember. And so we don't even want to like ask you guys questions or talk about things because then we're going to feel like we're small.
The minute you graduate, that will be the smartest that you'll ever be in anesthesia. Then you take boards, and then it's like a flushing system where stuff all of a sudden, because you forgot your parents' name and your sister's name or your kids' names or their birthdays because you had a lot of other information that had to go in there. So all of a sudden, we pass forwards, and now we can forget about some stuff, right? So absolutely, senior students, smartest students you'll ever meet right before they're going to graduate, smartest time. Oh, absolutely. And I tell the SRNAs, I tell them all every time they're about to graduate, this is the smartest you're ever going to be in anesthesia right now, right now.
It's true because I mean we're constantly reviewing. We have to.
You have to.
Yeah, right. Because I mean it's C season as I like to call it for my school. But I mean, all right. So let's transition now into there was a book you were mentioning before, Make It Stick. I think that's what I heard.
Yeah.
You have like a couple of excerpts that you really love, or like even things that you've taken from that book that now you are giving them as your tips and your personal tricks to your sRNAs. Like what can our audience help also take away from this episode other than the most refreshing vet session ever?
The book actually is it's really interesting. It is one of the smallest little books you'll ever have. Okay. It's very, very thin. In our program, and I'm not sure if they still do that, but we would get it for our students as, one of the things that we'd like them to have when they first start. It basically goes through misconceptions of studying. So like what I said, remembering is a good thing, right? In this day and age, we don't take notes very often. Sometimes the act of writing something out or recopying your notes is huge. What's the benefit of teaching other people the knowledge and going into a room and, getting some markers and actually writing stuff on a whiteboard? All these little things are things that it tells you. It tells you what you need to find out when the best time for you to study is. Sometimes the best time is in the morning, sometimes it's in the afternoon, whatever that time is. So there's so many little things that can help out. But it also talks a lot about like emotional intelligence and how we go about our day, right? How we go about dealing with some issues. And I think that's one of the biggest things is really what your attitude is towards learning and what your attitude is towards school. I think it should be something that it's exciting, and it's funny because I often tell those students is I take a picture of them the very first day. When in the senior, I used to teach their very last class, the senior seminar course, right? And so in the last class, the first day of that last class, that last semester, I'd put up that picture of the first day. And I tell them, I go, aren't these different looking people? They look so much younger and refreshed and so
Yeah.
happy. And then all of you now don't have that look anymore. And they're all laughing, of course. And I go,
Right,
well, you
right.
don't have that look because you've been weathered now, right? And the weight of the world has been upon you. And then I kind of put like this little slide and it said, they said it was going to be easy, like riding a bike, except for everything's on fire.
No.
The sky's on
yes.
fire, everything. And so all of a sudden everything turns red because that is what anesthesia school is like, right? But it's really having those conversations before you get in. So I think that as students are about to get into school, that's the time where when you find out that you're being accepted into a program, you have some time. And so students always ask, "Oh my God, what can I do? What books can I read?" It's like,
Right.
don't do any
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. Don't.
You need
don't.
to like just, kind of come in refreshed. And the one book that I recommend is the Make It Stick book, right? Read something on that. Read something on resiliency. read something on problem solving and how to make yourself better, wellness, right? Because that's going to serve you so good, right? So I mentioned about the triathlon thing and the Ironman. When I started running, I went to anesthesia school.
Yeah.
That's when I became a runner. And so I went to
Me too.
anesthesia
It's
school.
cheap.
So I am yeah, it's cheap. And you don't need to buy anything, right?
No.
And so I born and raised in Miami, right? And then I moved to Minnesota for school.
Yeah.
Minnesota's very like there's no snow in
Oh,
Miami. There's a
no.
lot of snow in Minnesota, and it's really, really cold. I mean, summers are beautiful, but they're only 2 weeks long.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time is just this white stuff everywhere.
White stuff.
And so it was really difficult to deal with that. Well, I started running, and my thing is, as long as it was above zero, and I can't believe I'm saying this, as long as it was above zero, I'd go for a run,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
mind boggling to me now because I couldn't imagine being in like 10-degree weather right now, right? But you build this thing, right? And then that's when I started running. When I was the president of the Florida Association of Nurse Anesthetists, that's when I trained for my Ironman because it was so stressful,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so in
Exactly.
times of extreme stress in my life, that's when I really turned to exercise, right? And it's helped me. But it's those positive things that you kind of start doing, right? And so running turned into biking, turned into swimming, but all that was also a product of what I was going through different things in my life, right? And that's I think how we define, like someone said, oh, how you define success. Success is not what you become. Success, I think, in life is how you endure things as well. There's a huge thing of how you're going to endure different trials within your life. CRNA school by far is a very, very big trial in your life. And how you come out of that is going to be a positive thing. I can already tell, Olivia, that you're going to be a really good preceptor because some of
Thank
the things
you.
that we've been talking about, you've endured it very, very well. And that's a positive thing. The fact
I
that you
appreciate
can
that.
smile and you're at the end of your program and then you're not grumpy about it, kudos to you. You made it, right? The light is
No,
at the
thank
end of
you.
the tunnel, you know?
I know. I finally let the countdown. I have a countdown on my phone, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
But I think that all students need to always think about celebrate those happy moments. After every semester, celebrate with each other. You guys are one semester closer to finishing, right? In that last semester, then really make that countdown. Every single class, put that countdown up in the board. Everyone needs to know about this. Celebrate the small stuff because when you celebrate the small stuff, it makes us feel good, right? And it's those feel good moments that you need to get you through that. But yeah.
Absolutely. No, and it's definitely one of the challenges that I've had to overcome just like me personally. I never used to celebrate my small wins. I used to never think that they were good enough. And I have two things to say. So the first one was, and this is me being generally open with not only you and obviously the entire all of our listeners out there. When I was in that time period, leaving the bedside and starting CRNA school, I was depressed. I didn't realize how bad it was until I moved back home and my mom said to me, she was like, "Olivia, you don't smile anymore." And I was like, "Well, this is like, what do you mean? Like, this is just how I've been." And she was like, "You don't smile, you don't laugh, you're just monotone. And now you're meeting me today and you're like, oh, who would that Olivia even be?" And so with that, I actually got on an SSRI. I started going to therapy. And one of the things that I said during the open house for my CRNA program to those who were interested in applying, I said, "Listen, your mental health has got to be intact as much as you can have it before you start this program, because if I had not taken those extra steps to ensure that I was in a good mental place before the starting line, I don't even think I could have like finished, honestly." And it's been one of those things, and I my plan is to, get off of it once this is all over, 'cause I feel better about myself now and I have more control, and the therapy's helped a lot, but that was just one of the big things. And I think now even going on to, like, the wellness aspect of it, like you said, like, I'm fitting running in just when I can, and I love it because it's cheap. I love it because my dad's also picked up running, and now he and I are sharing each other's stats with each other. which is awesome. And now we're going to start running together when I eventually move to Charleston. And so there's that. But like at then also I'll talk to a lot of my classmates and I hope that you can guide us and answer this question where it's just like I have very little time. Like for example, next week I'm scheduled to work 88 hours in the hospital. I've got a 24, four tens, and then another 24. I mean, with that little amount of time that I have to myself, like there's so many people that I talk to that are like, I don't have time for me. I don't have time for wellness. I don't even have time to sleep or meal prep or do anything. So how do you like get yourself out of that, I guess, mental space of like, oh, I can't even fit this in. But when reality is your wellness is like just your biggest strength to get through a program like this.
So I'm going to go back to Maslow. Somehow I always say that to myself is I'm not going to be able to provide for anyone unless I do something for myself first. So in that sense where you're working every day and you're exhausted, even just taking a walk for yourself for a minute, right before, just take the long way. Don't go down the elevator, go down the stairs, take your time. It's different little things and it's just little moments that we can take. And I know it sounds like cliche because it's easier for you to say than anything else or but it's even you take just 5 minutes. I remember sometimes I was so stressed out and I'd finish eating lunch and you're hurrying up and everything. And I would just go outside for a minute. And this is not in school, by the way. This is already when I was a CRNA. I would go outside for a minute and stand outside in the sun and just close my eyes and just
Mhm.
feel the sun on me.
Mhm.
Right? Just think to myself how good this feels. You know what? Couple weeks, I'm gonna go to the beach. I'm gonna do this. And we should, and it's funny because someone told me this and I didn't understand the gravitas of this until I started being really, really busy in life. When you finish a vacation, plan the next one.
Oh.
We sometimes live from vacation to vacation. We live from weekend to weekend. We live from good time to good time, right? And so don't let it end, right? And sometimes when we're looking forward to something, it helps us get through the bad stuff.
It
Kudos,
does.
it really does. And kudos to you for working on your mental health before you started school. Also, very important is not getting off your medication while you're in school either.
Yeah. No, no.
Wrong thing
Nope.
to do. Don't
Mm.
change anything. Make it
Nope,
work.
nope.
If you do not start school in a good place, you may not make it through school, right? And so you have to make sure that you've worked on yourself before you start school, that you've worked on these positive things. And through school is the same thing. It is so hard when you're exhausted to take time for yourself. But, sometimes that even means listening to your podcast
Yeah.
and just taking a walk,
Yeah.
right? And you're decompressing. But anything you can do to decompress, that can raise your heart rate a little bit. You need the endorphins. Absolutely need the endorphins somehow. A brisk walk, something. If you don't, the endorphins are what heal us, right? Sleep heals us, right? And sleep obviously does. But as a student, you're sleep deprived. Guarantee you're sleep
Oh, yeah.
deprived, right? That's just not. So you need something else to heal you. So what else is going to heal you? Endorphins will heal you. And the healthy way of getting endorphins is some type of activity is going to get your heart rate up a little bit, right?
Yeah. No, definitely. And hearing you say all this was making me think of these OB shifts are quite long. And I remember on the last 2 or hour and a half of my last shift, we have an attending at one of the hospitals here, and she constantly like just walks the unit. When she starts to get tired, she just walks the unit and she grabs us and has us walk with her. We walk like 2 miles and we're just circling the unit and we're all laughing and carrying on and venting and talking, and it builds that sense of camaraderie, not only my fellow SRNA, but also my attending who now I like absolutely like adored before, but now I really adore. And it's just like it was just a good moment. And because she did that for me, I now started getting into the habit of, all right, when I get home from clinical, I'm exhausted. I know I'm tired. but I should not sit on the couch immediately. Instead, I get on my running shoes, and whether I take a run or I just take a long walk, I just listen to what I want. And it could be 30 minutes. I can spare 30 minutes. And I already feel better. I feel re-energized. And then I can sit back down and my focus is better because that's what I'm really chasing.
And that's what you want, is the focus. Yep.
Yeah. Right.
This is gonna sound so horrible, but I remember where I used to live, when I was going through a really stressful time in my life. I would go running and stuff, and it would be like towards later on in the evening, whatever. And oh my God, maybe don't recommend this to people, maybe when you're running through your neighborhood, but I would like sometimes just like yell
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
let out like a forceful scream as I'm running. And I mean, people would think, oh my God, he's really trying to run here. I wouldn't yell obscenities or anything like
Or
that.
that you have
But they'd be like,
schizophrenia, but yeah.
but things like that, they're so just, it's like letting it all go out.
Yeah, it has to go somewhere.
And you need to find an outlet. And that is so important, because the minute you turn on the stupid box, you're going to get stupider. Guarantee it. Especially with the stuff that they put nowadays. Okay. Like with reality TV stuff. Like,
I know.
who cares what rich people do? Like, who cares what the housewives of what do and all these things? Like, you don't want all that. You know what I mean?
No, I
And
know.
so
I know.
forget that. Let's get some positive stuff here.
No, I'm so with you. There's sometimes I turn on the TV and I'm like, this is not helping me. It's either making me feel worse about myself because I don't have all the money in the world to have, like, my eyebrows done, my lips injected, etc.
And then look like a freak. You don't want to do that
I know
either.
they do. Yeah, I know. And I'm like, can we bring back the natural beauty? Anyway, so I digress. Well, I mean, we've been talking for almost nearly an hour, and so clearly I think that just really shows how wonderful you've been as a guest on this episode. I honestly have been enjoying it, and I'm like a little bit like kind of happy that I got to enjoy this all by myself. So now my colleagues can be pretty jealous, but thank you so much for coming on. This has been really great. I believe down in my heart that this will be very beneficial to those who listen to this episode.
I hope so. And thank you very much for having me on.
Yes, no, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. All right, till next time.
Of course. Yeah. Bye.
Want to be the voice of the next season of Grade 1 View? Well, we're looking for new hosts for Season 2, launching in 2026. If you're a CRNA student or resident with at least 12 months left in your program, this is your chance to grab a mic and shape the conversation. Apply by November 1st at aana.com/G1V, or just check the description of today's show for a link. Let your voice be heard on Grade 1 View.